Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NBA Strategy Show, presented to you by Bet365. Joining alongside me is Adam Scherer, aka Ship My Money DFS. Adam, how are you doing this morning?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to getting through this show and then getting on with my weekend.
Got any exciting plans this weekend?
No, not at all. I'm supposed to go to my sister's after this show and help her move furniture. So, should be able to.
Helping people move. Oh, it's that's one of the most treacherous tasks out there. But
I think we're just moving stuff from like upstairs to downstairs. I know her house isn't ready to be moved into yet. So, okay. I don't know exactly what we're doing. I'm just sure it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I would just if it's a lot of stuff, I would just hire one of those contractor movers.
Right. Right.
Moving is the absolute nut worst. Can't get any much worse than that. But Here we are to talk about today's 5-game slate. As the playoff races are heating up and the seeding is heating up. And we have I believe all three MVP candidates are slated to play today. As producer Jacob and Adam were breaking down their MVP thoughts. We'll touch on them in terms of DFS purposes later today. But we'll go ahead and get started. Hit that like and subscribe button. And thanks so much for joining us this morning. First game, we got Brooklyn going to Miami with Brooklyn 5.5 point underdogs in this spot in South Beach. And Brooklyn's been a little bit of a different story. Mikal Bridges has come down to earth. He's priced at 7,100 on DraftKings, 7,800 over there on FanDuel. Spencer Dinwiddie has been playing much better of late, 8,300 and 8K over there on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's kind of there. Those are that dynamic duo there. And then you got Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson. And then everyone else, there's this bunch of those 3 and D wing players that are kind of whatsoever. You kind of shrug your shoulders and move on. Talk to me about this Brooklyn team going into so one of the lowest totals on the slate in Miami spot. But in terms of the slate size, some of these guys will certainly be appealing.
Yeah, and as far as it being, one of the lowest totals, there's only 5 games, and 3 of them have totals 225 or less. So it's not quite as drastic a drop off as it would have been on a lot of the other recent slates. It's a tough matchup, but you just still get so many opportunities for these guys. Mikal Bridges only 7,100. Since joining Brooklyn, he's at 1.12 DraftKings points per minute, which with a nearly 28% usage rate. Spencer Dinwiddie has certainly picked it up of late. He's now up to 1.08 DraftKings points per minute since joining the Nets. 23% usage rate, but also a 38% assist percentage. I know that's something Lofty had talked about in the past, that Dinwiddie seemed to be getting pretty unlucky on some assist opportunities when he first joined this team, and we've seen that turn around. So he is $8,300, $1,200 more expensive than Bridges. I think that automatically makes Bridges the preferred option of the two, but it also gives you the opportunity to get a much lower owned Dinwiddie, who still clearly has a very high ceiling. You muted, or you're muted?
What about the rest of the front court here with Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson? Any interest? Cam Johnson getting the 3-point bonus over there in DraftKings. It's kind of all dependent on that shot. If it's going in, he finds a way to get there. But anyone else that you're really interested in getting significantly above the field on for this Brooklyn Nets team?
Yeah, I mean, I think in tournaments, they're still kind of just interesting across the board. You only have 8% ownership coming into Nick Claxton. I realize it's not an appealing spot, but, again, 5-game slate. And if you're going to get a very reasonably priced Claxton at that 8% ownership mark, that's pretty appealing to me. Cameron Johnson only played about 22 minutes last game, but we see plenty of games where he plays 30 to 33. He's only 6% owned at 6,300. And then if you don't want to go to Claxton, we have been getting basically all of the backup center minutes going to Daron Sharp. Last game, you got 33.5 minutes for Claxton. You got 14.5 for Sharp. We know Sharp is a good point per minute guy. He's only $3,500. If you happen to get a game where Claxton plays 28, 29 minutes for any reason instead of 33 to 34, you're probably getting 18 to 20 minutes from Sharp at a cheap price tag and not much ownership. So it's not a team you're going to feel good about clicking these names, but I do think that there is tournament upside from really any of the starters, except probably for Finney Smith, but even he's cheap. But any of the, Bridges, Claxton, Dinwiddie, Cameron Johnson, and then, if you want to kind of go off the board and hope to get lucky, Daron Sharp has upside as well.
Yeah, on a slate like this today, and I know Dorian Finney-Smith has been absolutely god-awful in terms of DFS purposes, but he's one of those guys who sneakily could find a way to low 20s, mid-20 fantasy points with just knocking down a couple extra threes. He's going to have the minutes, so as gross as it sounds, that's one way to get different. I've been chasing him a little bit too much, but he's not been fun to roster at all for some time for the last couple of weeks. But Let's move on to the Miami side of things. But before we go to Miami, I want to talk about Chalkboard. We have this new exciting sports betting platform where many of our personalities are in there. You'll see Lofty, Josh, Greg, dropping a bunch of picks in our Chalkboard app platform. It's an exciting new platform where it links up all the sports books. You can be sweating your picks, all seeing the box scores all there. Then more importantly, getting able to chat with our hosts and analysts about certain picks. They're dropping their picks in there. Jake Hari did an exciting 25x prize picks parlay there a couple nights ago. So and it's free. So you can download the app. You'll find the link in the description. Producer Jacob will be dropping that in the YouTube chat. So you'll be able to get access to all our guys who are behind the scenes, just dropping their knowledge in there. You know, a lot of free NHA prize picks, free parlays, and also more importantly, a lot of free picks from our Odd Shopper premium tool, which has been super exciting to really take advantage of that marketplace that's there across all books. So make sure to use Chalkboard. And onto Miami we go. The Miami team has been playing a bit more minutes of late as the season has coming to a close here. And it's Jimmy Butler priced all the way up to 8,700 over there on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel. Two different stories for Butler, but Bam Adebayo 7,500 seems cheap in this spot. 8,100 over there on FanDuel. Tyler Hero sub 7K. It has been a while since we've seen Tyler Hero at this price tag, and 7,300. How do you feel about this Miami Heat big three here? That Tyler Hero price tag sticks out to me, but he hasn't been as effective of late as he was to start off this season. But any preference in the Miami big three for you?
I think they kind of just look similar, comparable to each other across the board, and they all look good. As far as Hero goes, I've been chasing these cheap price tags on him for what feels like a month now, and I don't know that I've gotten a single good game out of him, but I'm going to keep doing it. You know, played 32 minutes last game. You're typically getting 34, 35 from him. The upside is certainly there. The price tag's reasonable. You just have Jimmy Butler coming on offensively, and I think that's cutting into Hero a bit. But at 6,700 still, especially on a 5-gamer, still happy to get there. Butler looks fine at 8,700. We've seen him play really well recently. Played 37 minutes last game too. One of the big knocks on Butler from a DFS standpoint for a lot of this season has been when he does decide to play, he's only playing like 32, 33, sometimes 34 minutes. Getting him up to 37, seeing a little bit more playing time out of him recently certainly can make us feel a little bit better about going there. And then Bam at 7,500 is just a weird price tag. He played 39 and a half minutes last game. Miami doesn't really have a backup center right now. They're using Kevin Love, but he's also like not even playing in the fourth quarter of games. They kicked Yurtseven out of the rotation. Zeller's hurt. Dedmon's gone. So Bam's just playing a lot of minutes, and I'm really surprised how cheap his price tag's out.
Yeah, it's a very appealing Bam price tag. I even like him on FanDuel at 8,100. I know it's only one center over there, but the things get interesting here. I believe Caleb Martin and Kyle Lowry are both questionable. Immediately, my eyes would go to maybe Gabe Vincent gets extra run, maybe Max Strus gets some extra burn, where that could certainly open up some value. Strus comes in at 4K, Gabe Vincent 3,900. How do you position Vincent and Strus as viable value options for our lineups?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that Strus is getting 7 times the ownership for $100 more. You're probably getting 24 to 26 minutes from Vincent. Strus is most likely playing a little bit more, but like if you look at that last game, you got 32 and a half minutes from Strus. You only got 23 from Caleb Martin. We've seen Caleb Martin play bigger minutes than that in a lot of games recently. I don't think there's a guarantee that you get huge Max Strus minutes. You go back 2 games, go back to the game against the Pistons. You got 24 minutes from Strus. You got 31 from Caleb Martin. So I think that situation is pretty volatile, and it kind of surprises me that Strus is getting all the ownership. Now, Caleb Martin and Lowry are both questionable. If you get a situation where they're both out, then sure, Max Strus kind of has to play a lot of minutes at 4K, but then you're also probably getting a little bit more run from a $3,900 Vincent as well. So really, I just don't think that any of Martin, Strus, Vincent are exciting guys you're going to feel good about rostering, but I also don't think any of them should be pulling a lot more ownership than the rest.
Yeah, no, it's something to keep an eye on with those questionable situations. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on?
If you get Martin and Vincent out, you're probably going to get Oladipo returning to the rotation as well.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think we could go to Oladipo at that price tag?
Possibly. If those guys are out, you could take shots on him. Obviously, Miami's not really looking to play him a lot, though.
Yep. All right. All right. Let's move on to the next game. But before we go there, hit that like and subscribe button. And I want to talk about Bet365, our presenting sponsor for today. They have an exciting new promo for us, and it sounds pretty ridiculous. It's so good. It feels kind of like a scam. All you got to do is bet $1 and you'll get $365 in bonus bets at Bet365. The unfortunate thing, it's only available in Jersey, New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, and Virginia. But this is like probably the best offer I've seen in some time about these sports books. All you got to put is $1, got to deposit, and then you'll get a bonus bets added your way to your bonus bets balance at Bet365. So do not miss out on that offer. This is going to expire within the next week. So do not miss out on that. And check out that link in description. And that's really exciting. And shout out to our presenting sponsor, Bet365. And if you have a gambling issue, make sure to call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, on to the next game we go, and it's going to be an exciting game. Potential NBA Finals preview over here with Milwaukee going to Denver. Milwaukee's on a back end of a back-to-back here, and we'll see who ends up suiting up for this Milwaukee team on the back end back-to-back. They easily took care of Utah last night. Giannis didn't even play, I think. He played around 24 minutes and was an absolute machine, but Giannis is 11-6, 11-7. It's a slate with Giannis. He certainly has the potential to be the highest scoring player on the slate. I believe Chris Middleton is set to return. He's probable. Drew Holiday 7-8 and 7,600 on DraftKings and FanDuel respectively. Going back to Middleton, he comes in at 7,700 and 7,600. And it's kind of the Milwaukee big three here. As of right now, they're not getting much ownership because they're going to be kind of healthy. Yet again, very few times this season this Milwaukee team has been healthy. How do you feel about Milwaukee's big three going on a back-to-back to Denver here?
Yeah, I mean, tough spot going into Denver. Like you said, we have to wait and see who is playing. We know that Middleton sat yesterday, so we clearly expect him to be back today. Until we hear otherwise, I'm just going under the assumption that the main guys play. They didn't play a lot of minutes yesterday. As you said, 25 minutes for Holiday, 26.5 for Brolo, 25 for Giannis. They certainly could rest some of them. Who knows? I'm personally hoping they don't because I need big games out of Drew and Lopez both in best ball. But for now, I'm just assuming that they have their main guys playing. And if that's the case, nothing looks that appealing. Obviously, you can always get to Giannis, Middleton, Holiday, Lopez, but assuming they're all in, they just cut into each other's production enough and they're expensive enough that I don't find them that interesting. Drew's price tag came up a little bit on DraftKings. He's back to 7,800. You have Middleton at 7,700, pulling around 10% ownership. No problem with that. But there's not any one guy that stands out to me as a great option if they're all playing.
Yeah, that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And I believe for just standings purposes, because as ridiculous as it sounds, if they ended up with the tied standings, no, Milwaukee has like a 4-game lead on this team. But for what it's worth, if they were tied and if there was a tiebreaker for home court advantage in the finals, the Bucks did win the game in January. So if anyone is keeping track at home, but Denver's 4 games behind them, I believe, in the win column. So, but any other interest? I know you mentioned you want good games out of Lopez. As Lopez comes in at 7K and 7,600 here. Any interest in the secondary, third tier Bucks players here? Tougher to go to anyone in super confidence when this team is healthy, but do you have a lean on any interest in getting above the field on the rest of this Bucks team?
Not really. Not if they're at full strength. Like you can certainly make the case that, like, for example, if Max Strus is pulling 21% ownership and Grayson Allen's pulling 2, Grayson Allen's not a 10-1 dog against Max Strus, but also perfectly fine if I just don't play Grayson Allen.
Fair enough. Onto the Nuggets game we go. And like I said, if some of you guys live in Colorado, that Bet365 and you want to bet on the Nuggets tonight, go for it. You'll get those $365 in bet credit. So, but it's Nikola Jokic 11-3 and 11-9, 7,600 for Jamal Murray, 7,700 for him on FanDuel. And this team, it's Nikola Jokic, who seems like a solid option whenever he's on the slate. Center only. There are some solid centers on the slate. If Embiid is going to play, you can obviously play Giannis at center. And we touched on that cheap BAM price point. Jokic is going to get his ownership. It's just Nikola Jokic. How do we, with the projected ownership right now, talk to me specifically about Jokic, because whenever Jokic is on the slate, he's such a strong talking point just because of the upside he carries. How do you feel about him in this Milwaukee spot?
Yeah, it feels like the first time in a while that we've actually had a lot of ownership projected to come into Jokic. And I do find it sort of interesting because on the one hand, it's Jokic, like great. And his price tag has come down to 11.3. So he's a little bit less expensive than Giannis is. He's less expensive than Embiid is. But he's still center only. And this is still, even with it being a 5-game slate, a slate that has plenty of decent center options, whether it's Jokic, Embiid, Sabonis, Bam, that we already talked about, Claxton we talked about. So there is still opportunity cost here. It's interesting to me that you're getting 27% projected ownership going to Jokic compared to only 9% to Giannis when Giannis has the more favorable positional eligibility. But that aside, clearly Jokic is going to look like a very good play. And that salary is extremely reasonable, down to 11.3.
Yeah, and we'll see if other value opens up to get in the double stud build of Jokic, Embiid, or Jokic, Giannis as Saturday progresses. But these guys are priced up. And we haven't touched on that extremely cheap value yet, so it's gonna be trying to nail the studs right, and which one really pops off. They certainly have that huge upside just to carry your lineup. How about the rest of this Nuggets team? I mean, we know Jamal Murray has that upside. Michael Porter can get hot from the outside. Aaron Gordon, 6K. He was having some outlier rebounding games earlier to start the season. Kind of has tapered off post All-Star break. 6K and 6.3 here. How do you feel about the rest of the Nuggets starters? And I know Bruce Brown comes in at 4,400, but his minutes are always volatile. He can be a sneaky tournament option, but how do you feel about the rest of this Nuggets team?
Yeah, kind of just 6 guys on this team, all pulling 5 guys all pulling 10 to 20% ownership, and then Jokic at a little bit more. But it's just reasonable pricing across the board. This is a team that if this was your 9-10 game slate with a bunch of good spots to get to, they would all just be 5 to 10% owned secondary plays. But with it being a 5-gamer, it just is a bunch of guys that look pretty good. Jamal Murray would be my second favorite guy to get to at 7,600, but no real issues going to a 6K Gordon or $6,200 Porter. Brown and KCP, both just relatively useful value pieces at their respective salaries. But then beyond those 6 guys, I don't really think there's much. If you wanted to throw a dart at Christian Brown, I guess you could. He's back in the rotation, but him and Jeff Green both playing around 14 to 16 minutes. I don't think I'm going to need to get that desperate on this slate.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on here. Hypothetically speaking, Adam, if the Bucks and Nuggets met up in the finals, who do you think would win this series?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee in how many games?
Where is it? So it would be in Milwaukee?
Yeah, right now, if the final started, it would be in Milwaukee.
5.
Wow. You think this Bucks team is far superior than this Nuggets team?
Yes.
Interesting. I think it'd be a bit closer than that, but both these bench units are definitely on the weaker side of things. But it would make for a very intriguing finals, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing for Denver in the postseason is they don't have to play their bench. So their biggest flaw in the regular season disappears. But yeah, I mean, I think Milwaukee is a really, really good team, and I don't think the Nuggets are that good.
Interesting. Yeah, the Nuggets, obviously, the regular season playing in Denver always helps their regular season record. It could be their year. It's going to come down to Michael Porter Jr. If he could play like a defense and not get benched constantly, in my opinion. He's the true X factor on that team. But I know it would be an NBA nightmare if these two teams met up in terms of market size, and they won't want it. But in terms of just if they were to finish 1A and 1B in MVP race, I think it'd be a pretty intriguing series. But I don't think that's the most likely finals matchup. I think the most likely finals matchup based on odds right now would be Bucks versus Phoenix, based on just purely odds, which would be pretty intriguing as is.
All right. I don't know who gets out of the West, but I don't think it's Denver.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tough draw in the West. I mean, if Kevin Durant's going to be healthy, I know they haven't played much, but Kevin Durant's going to fit right in. He's supposed to return. And then I wouldn't count out the Warriors just because if they can win a game on the road more consistently, they'll win a series or two.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to health. If I've said it a few times, if the Lakers are actually healthy and LeBron's back and playing, I think they're a good team. Phoenix, if they're healthy, obviously a very good team. Golden State, obviously a very good team. I don't think Sacramento is particularly dangerous. I don't think the Nuggets are that good, but I think the West is it really just comes down to like which of those teams is healthy. Like it always does, but you have so many teams that are like potentially really, really good or potentially dog shit, depending on currently injured stars.
Agreed. Yeah. LeBron coming back would definitely help the Lakers' chances. Their odds were, I believe, at one when they were like the 13th seed or 14th seed, they were like plus 30,000, I think.
They were something like that. I had them to win the West at I think like plus 2,600 or something.
Okay. Yeah. Right now there are finals odds plus 4,600. So we'll see how that comes to fruition. But that's just fun chat about normal NBA whenever we can. Let's hit that like and subscribe button for us. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. If you guys are listening on the podcast, please do leave a 5-star review for us for the strategy show. On to Utah and Sacramento. Utah going to Sacramento here. They played earlier in the week. Utah kind of shocked them. And Utah's on the back end of the back-to-back. Sacramento's also on a back end to back-to-back. We'll touch on the Sacramento potential injury situation. But here, Lauri Markkanen did not play last game. He is, I believe, remains questionable when I last checked. But my expectation, he's supposed to return. He comes in at 9K on both sites right now. Lauri Markkanen, just kind of a usage guy on this team. Whenever he's there, he's going to find a way to take shots. With him being back in the picture, it kind of muddies the picture for everyone else. I think you can certainly take some chances on Walker Kessler if you can find a way to get those outlier blocks. But with Bam out of buyout at that price tag, I would just prefer going to Bam. Kessler comes in at 6,800 and 7,500. This team continues to be without Jordan Clarkson. And I believe Rudy Gay is questionable, which could open up some extra minutes for some of those back-end wing players. How do you feel about this Utah team and specifically Lauri Markkanen going to Sacramento?
Yeah, no injury report for them yet since they played yesterday. But if Markkanen's back, 9K against Sacramento is a pretty appealing price tag. Small forward eligible, where we know it can be pretty difficult to find high upside plays. So I would like getting the Markkanen if he's back. It was a hand injury, so I assume he's just going to play big minutes. The last game he played on the 22nd, he played 33 minutes, played 35 the game before that, 37 the game before that. I'm not worried about his playing time if he's in. It's just a matter of does he play. But if he plays at 9K, certainly like him against the Kings. Kelly Olynyk, 6,500, Chris Dunn, 5,600. They both look okay, but I would like them both more if Markkanen is out. If Markkanen is in, it does increase the likelihood that Talen Horton-Tucker and Chris Dunn pretty much play around 48 minutes. We did see them close together 2 games ago when Markkanen was in, so it's not impossible that they play minutes alongside each other. But Will Hardy's tendency has been to not have them on the floor together all that often. If Markkanen's out, then clearly it does take a big offensive piece and a lot of minutes out of the rotation and just make it a little bit more likely that you get more minutes from Dunn and Horton-Tucker together. Yesterday, we got 27 from Dunn, including garbage time. We got 26 from Horton-Tucker. So still didn't play together a lot, but did play together a little bit. Dunn's got the more favorable price tag, though, at 5,600. As far as Walker Kessler goes, it is an appealing matchup against Sacramento. Fast-paced team, doesn't play defense. Only 4% ownership is really interesting to me. He's another just mid-range center that I think may be going a little bit under-owned, but there's a lot of guys that still look similar to him as well.
Yeah, and I think this is just an appealing game environment. Right now, the way things stand, I think 237.5 total. For what it's worth, the highest right now among the 5 games here. But with Markkanen coming back, I think Kelly Olynyk just hasn't been playing enough minutes for me to go there in confidence. And he kind of got a price bump at 6,500 and 6,700. Yes, he can pay that off. He can get hot. But at that price tag, how do you feel about targeting Kelly Olynyk today?
The lack of ownership is kind of appealing, but I would certainly like him more if Markkanen's out. The thing that I like about Olynyk is that he has the ability to do so many things offensively, and this team doesn't have that many guys that can do much offensively, especially if Markkanen's out. So you have Olynyk with around a 20% assist percentage without Clarkson or Markkanen on the floor. He only has about a 17% usage rate in those minutes. You could certainly see the usage come up a bit, the assist percentage come down a bit, but it's just somebody where, especially if Markkanen's out, sooner or later, I just expect there to be like a Kelly Olynyk blow-up game where, he just runs the offense, kind of like we were seeing from him when he was in Houston, I think it was. So I like the ceiling, but to your point, I agree also. It's not like you're getting a reduced salary on Kelly Olynyk and you're just looking at it saying he's going to just destroy this sooner or later. He's kind of priced for what I think Kelly Olynyk is, and we're not really seeing it so far. He's been about a fantasy point per minute guy without Markkanen and Clarkson, which is fine. But if you're playing 30 to 32 minutes, you're getting around a fantasy point per minute. Obviously, you bump that a bit because of Sacramento, but it's kind of just a correct price tag, and even more so, if not overpriced, if Markkanen's in.
Yeah, the thing about this team, it's just the game environment against Sacramento, and I definitely want to pick and choose my spots and getting above the field on some of these guys, but especially with the Markkanen news, that's going to be really critical to how much Utah Jazz players I want to get. I think Markkanen will be really exciting to go to if he's going to play, but it's just that game environment I want to target. It's been always fun to target players against the Kings all season long here. Any final thoughts on this Utah team before we flip over to Sacramento?
No, just a great matchup to get to these guys if you can.
Yeah, and I think the ownership is certainly going to evolve, especially with the Markkanen news as the day progresses. Onto the Sacramento side of things, really interesting development here last night. And I think with the situation with De'Aaron Fox, so Fox, they said Fox could have returned last night, but they chose to hold him out with a hamstring soreness injury. And now I'm not sure if he's going to play. If Fox is going to be ruled out, that'll certainly open up some backcourt minutes for the Sacramento team. But Sabonis, regardless, at 10-2 and 10-5, just another loaded power forward center slate we have. One of the most loaded small slates that we have on this, like with Embiid, Jokic, Sabonis, Giannis. All these studs are on the table here. And we know Sabonis has triple-double upside at 10-2 and 10-5, and he'll look even better if De'Aaron Fox is out. Talk to me specifically about Sabonis and how we should go upon him in the mix with all these other centers on the slate.
Yeah, so Sabonis is really interesting to me because the price tag just is pretty low for what he gives you. You know, he's playing 36 to 38 minutes in competitive games. He's giving you triple-double upside every time he's on the floor, and he's only $10,200 here. The thing that's interesting to me is that he actually hasn't seen much of a change at all in his production with or without De'Aaron Fox this year. And I think it's natural to assume that he would because, you know, you're getting more playmaking opportunities, you're getting more usage available. And I think you could certainly argue that it increases his ceiling because it's just one less guy he has to compete with offensively. But him and Fox are so productive together in the two-man game that replacing De'Aaron Fox with Davion Mitchell doesn't do any favors for Domantas Sabonis from an efficiency standpoint, from a production standpoint. So in the games that Sabonis has played this year where Fox has been in, he's at 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. In the games he's played without Fox, he's at 1.38 DraftKings points per minute. It's very similar to if you just look at on-off rates, you know, not full games, but 924 total minutes without De'Aaron Fox on the floor, 1.38 DraftKings points per minute for Sabonis. If you put De'Aaron Fox on the floor, it's not much of a difference. So I think that there is the potential for Sabonis maybe to come in a little bit over-owned just because the natural inclination is, you know, if De'Aaron Fox is out, Domantas Sabonis looks a lot better. Domantas Sabonis looks great either way, but I think he looks about the same.
Yeah, and that's something to keep an eye on, especially I just like Sabonis for the matchup upside. Everything is just checking the boxes. And yeah, I know Fox is going to be an important piece to the rest of the team here, but I think regardless, he looks like a solid play. Kevin Huerter lit it up last game coming back from injury. I believe he had 50-plus fantasy points, 5,400, 6,200. Where you get the 3-point bonus on DraftKings. It's a back-to-back coming back from injury. My inclination is he'll play. They haven't mentioned anything. We'll see what that ends up coming up with Kevin Huerter. Now, other guys here, Malik Monk will look more intriguing if De'Aaron Fox is out. I think you can take a chance on him even if Fox plays at 4,800. Yes, it's a very thin play if that were to happen, but it's going to come down to De'Aaron Fox. And then keep in mind, I know Davion Mitchell always finds a way to get ownership when Fox is out, but he's just not that guy to get that offensive usage for this Kings team. He is 3,300. How do you feel about Monk and Davion Mitchell if De'Aaron Fox is out tonight?
Yeah, so I mean, Monk, like you said, he's playable even if Fox is in. He's certainly going to look better just because there's more minutes available and more usage available if Fox is out. Right now, projected with Fox out for like 36% ownership, which is aggressive, but also, you know, we haven't talked about a lot of high upside value plays that we like. Monk certainly in a good spot, has a high ceiling with or without Fox, but especially without Fox. For Mitchell, it's always one of the more difficult situations to talk about because especially on a slate like this where we haven't talked about a lot of cheap guys that we like, playing Davion Mitchell, if he is starting in place of Fox, opens up a lot. You know, it makes it easier for you to get to Jokic or Sabonis or Giannis or whoever you want of those pay up guys. But he's not a good point per minute guy, and he's going to be really, really popular. So in his starts this year, he's averaged 0.65 DraftKings points per minute. You're likely to get upper 20s playing time from him, and he's 50% owned. He's a good play. He's a good value. Like, he's not somebody you're expecting to break the slate, but it's just what he allows you to get into your lineups elsewhere. The counter argument to that, though, is that it's a guy that projects for 20 fantasy points. He's getting 50% ownership. So there are ways around it. It just always ends up being a really tricky and I think really interesting spot, you know, kind of seeing how it plays out. I do know on previous slates, and I haven't, you know, built lineups for this one yet, but on previous slates where we've gotten the Davion Mitchell starts, I have typically been well under the field on him. Doesn't mean I will be today. You know, today we don't have as much value as we have on some of those other ones, but it does just create a really, really interesting spot where I think you can make strong arguments in either direction.
Agreed. And I think the rest of the wings here, Barnes and Murray, are interchangeable. I prefer Barnes because he gets so many more minutes, but it will change up if Fox is out. I think Murray could find a way to a little bit more usage. Enough to De'Aaron Fox plays. I think he's an outstanding play at $8,400. I think I'd certainly like to get to De'Aaron Fox for sure if he's going to play. He's only $8,400 on DraftKings, $9,200 over there on FanDuel. Any final thoughts on Barnes and Murray before we?
They both look okay. They're going to look decent either way. They'll look a little bit better if Fox is out, just because you are opening up more usage. Like when you replace De'Aaron Fox with Davion Mitchell, that is just a ton of offensive production that needs to go elsewhere. So it makes them all look better. Kevin Huerter has typically been the one that soaks up the most of that in the games that Fox has been out. Huerter's at a fantasy point per minute. Barnes is at about 0.8. Murray's at about 0.75. That's only over a 7-game sample. That's not to say that, you know, it's always going to be Kevin Huerter over those guys, but we have seen Huerter take on the biggest bump offensively, but it certainly will make Barnes and Murray look a little bit better as well.
Yep. Exciting game environment. I do definitely think will be a critical point to this slate for sure, with a bunch of moving news on the Utah side with Markkanen, De'Aaron Fox on the Kings side of news. I definitely think it'll open things up for us. On to the next game, another potential finals preview with the Sixers going to Phoenix. The Sixers are on a back into the back-to-back. They lost a game to the Warriors last night in San Francisco. Joel Embiid on a back into the back-to-back might be chasing for this MVP nod, so he might be playing today. I'm not so sure. But James Harden dealing with that Achilles injury. It seemed like he's very close to returning, but they're more optimistic that he returns in their following game, not this game. So Embiid comes in at 11, 5, and 12K. And if Harden is going to be out, I think Embiid looks outstanding. Tyrese Maxey comes in at $7,300 and $7,400, and Tobias Harris $6,100 and $6,800 on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's just if Harden's going to be out, there's going to be minutes usage all available for this team to soak up outside of Embiid. I know Embiid seems outstanding as is, but Harden potentially being out yet again is going to open up things for Harris, Maxey, and Melton. How do you feel about the Sixers team going to Phoenix tonight?
Yeah, I mean, the Harden news obviously is huge, and we do need confirmation that Embiid's playing as well. I assume that he will, but obviously have been wrong on that before. But with Embiid, he's good either way, like you said. 1.62 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with James Harden this year. Clearly, you're perfectly happy getting to that, even if Harden's in. But 14 games without Harden, 1.83 DraftKings points per minute, just shy of a 40% usage rate and just shy of a 40% assist percentage. So you see him take on, a much bigger role, not only as a scorer, but as a facilitator. And this is a spot where, unlike Sabonis, where I think Sabonis looks really good either way, but doesn't get much of a bump without Fox, you do get a sizable bump here from great to extra great for Embiid if Harden is out. So certainly something to pay attention to. He'll look good either way, but looks quite a bit better if Harden is out. For the rest of the team, if Harden's in, they're not that appealing. Price tags have come up on most of these guys. Harris is up to $6,100 on DraftKings. Maxey's at $7,300. Harden himself would be fine at $9,600 if he's not going to be limited. But if he's in, it just makes it difficult to prioritize any of this. Whereas if he sits, you can certainly go back to a $7,300 Tyrese Maxey. He played 40 minutes without Harden yesterday, and we know that he gets a nice bump in usage without him. Tobias Harris played 38 minutes. He gets a bump in usage. Still not a super high usage guy. It's only about 20 to 21% in the games he's played without Harden and with Embiid. But when you consider it's around 15 to 16% when both of those guys are in, that's still a pretty sizable bump in opportunities for him. The Anthony Melton looks a bit better if Harden is out as well. So really, really huge injury news here.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the James Harden situation. Now, if Harden plays at 9,600, I'm certainly take some chances at that price tag, 9,500 on FanDuel. But coming back from an Achilles injury could be some sort of minutes monitoring. It's Doc Rivers. Just proceed with caution there with whatever he says pregame. Yeah, it's going to come down to the James Harden situation to really change up the roster here. I know Jalen McDaniels didn't play last game. They traded for him, and I thought he was going to play a significant role on this team. It just hasn't been there for him at 3K and 4K. If he plays, do you think we could take some chances on him? It seems too thin, right?
It depends who's in. Like if they're healthy, I'm not going to McDaniels. If you were to get a situation where they Harden, Embiid, Harris sit and McDaniels plays, then sure at 3K, but you would need guys to be out for sure.
Yeah. I thought he could certainly fit into this team. This team has been playing really well post All-Star break, and hopefully this could be the year Philly actually gets to the conference finals. They just always find a way to fuck it up.
I hope they lose in the first round. I said I hope they lose in the first round just for the laughs.
Oh, just for Laufey's just going to lose his shit?
Laufey and just all the Embiid people on Twitter.
Yeah. No, I mean, the best year was obviously the year Kawhi Leonard sunk them. I definitely thought they had all the pieces to make a run for sure into the finals. But obviously Kawhi had other plans, and they have not been the same team since then. Like, James Harden's always due for a disappearance in the playoffs in like the most critical game. It's just the same story, different year with him. We'll see if that happens yet again. But onto the Phoenix side we go. Kevin Durant is set to return later this week, so we still get the extra usage from Devin Booker. Comes in at 10K and 10-1. I think you can certainly take some chances on there. It's an elevated price tag for Booker. He's going to come in low on just because I think a lot of the ownership is going to gravitate to the other studs, that being Sabonis, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid. They just project so much better than him from a raw fantasy point projection. That's going to put Booker in a lower owned spot, in a guard spot where we haven't touched on many spend up guards on the slate just because of the lack of them. Chris Paul comes in at 7,200 on DraftKings, 7,800 over there on FanDuel. Those are the two guys that definitely stick out. Biyombo's gonna be asked to play some minutes against Embiid, whatever he can handle. He comes in at $4,300 over there on DraftKings. But it's really, this team's just not getting much ownership. The guy who's potentially might get a lot in terms of like sub 4K ownership, is it going to be TJ Warren? Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, he did play 29 minutes yesterday. Yeah. I don't know if he'll play today or not, but the Devin Booker piece is really interesting to me because on the one hand, anytime you can get a 3% owned Devin Booker, that's just naturally going to be appealing in tournaments because we talked about this yesterday too. It was a similar situation, better matchup, but similar situation where the guy can just go out there and score more real points than most players do fantasy points. And it's just so easy relatively for Devin Booker to just put up a game that you have to have, but it's also really tough to click him into your lineups when you could just play Sabonis for a little bit more. You could find, just downgrade one spot in your lineup and get up to a Giannis or Jokic or whoever. So, Embiid. So I understand why he's 3% owned, but it's just always really fun. And especially when it's a 5-game slate to be able to say like, oh, I'm contrarian because I played Devin Booker. So he does carry that appeal. If you can get to him, great. But I do get why the ownership's low just because, I'd be lying if I said that I thought you should be prioritizing Booker over any of those other guys. Chris Paul, 7,200, certainly a very favorable price tag on him. We have the center rotation with Biyombo and Landale getting pretty much 48 minutes, 4,300 for Biyombo, 41 for Landale. They will both have their hands full in this matchup if Embiid plays, but they both have the opportunities to get enough minutes at those price tags where they're decent plays in tournaments. If you want to take shots on TJ Warren, fine. I think you can make the same case for Terrence Ross. He played 27 minutes yesterday as well. We know that Phoenix is sort of mixing things up with their second unit. They had talked about that a week or two ago, that they weren't exactly sure how it was going to play out. They were going to try some different things. You do have Landry Shamet back now as well that, can take minutes from guys occasionally. So I wouldn't feel confident with anything off the bench, but they are cheap enough where, if they get the minutes, it's not hard to envision one of those guys paying off.
Yeah, I think it's something to for sure keep an eye on, especially with TJ Warren. That's like kind of appealing at that price tag. So we'll see how that ends up working out by the time.
And we did also get a small closing lineup last game. So, I don't know if they'll go that route in this spot if Embiid's in, but it is people have a tendency to say oh, well, they can't close small because X is the other center. Bismack Biyombo and Jack Landale aren't stopping Embiid anyway. So you certainly can just say all right, we're going to get destroyed by Embiid regardless. Let's just play a smaller lineup, get more shooting out there, counter, maybe try and get Landry Shamet more minutes, as a 3-point shooter. So it's not as simple as just saying oh, you can't go small against Embiid because he's going to torch them regardless. So if you get that same closing lineup where, last game it was Ross and Warren were out there along with Craig, Paul, and Booker, this game, it could be Shamet and Ross. It could be Shamet Warren. It could be one of Biyombo or Landale. There's a lot of different ways this closing lineup can go.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be one of the last few times we get to mix and match this Phoenix team before KD comes back. But we had this question before. Let's say if this team were to meet up in the finals and Kevin Durant is healthy, do you think the Phoenix Suns will be sweeping the Sixers?
If the Sixers play the Suns in the final, the Sixers probably get a game.
Win a game, yeah. But I don't think it's going to be that close if KD's healthy. But certainly could happen. Any final thoughts on this game? I know some injury news, obviously, on the Philly end, but anything else you want to touch on from this game?
No.
All right. On to the next game. In the final game we go. Hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you haven't checked out NBA Bet Pro, I highly recommend to do so if you have betting available in your state. There's definitely some exciting bets every day that gets posted later in the morning and all throughout the day, updated with our projections. And a very, very high puts you in the position to be profitable over a long period of time using NBA Bet Pro. So make sure to take advantage of NBA Bet Pro and that free trial that we have going over there. Find that link in the description. And now onto the New Orleans and Clippers team. This New Orleans team has been the most disappointing team since that Zion injury. And they're just trying to hang on and find a way into the play-in game scenario. And they're just playing a bunch of minutes to do so. And Brandon Ingram comes in at 8,900 and CJ McCollum 81. And Jonas Valanciunas has been playing more minutes at 7,500. I believe Trey Murphy is questionable last I checked. But just keep an eye on that updated injury report. Okay. Yeah, keep an eye on that updated injury report with Murphy. Might open up more minutes for guys like Josh Richardson, Najee Marshall as well. Maybe some trickle-down effect of Dyson Daniels. Unlikely it gets that far down. But with this team playing so many minutes, Brandon Ingram, I've been getting to quite a bit of late. And Jonas Valanciunas, I've been getting above the field on him more consistently than in weeks past. 7,500 for him, 8K over there on FanDuel. How do you feel about this Pelicans kind of big three and Ingram, McCollum, and Valanciunas? I just like that they're playing so many minutes. They're kind of fighting for their playoff lives right now.
Yeah, I like the playing time. The salaries are pretty much where they should be, and this is, one of the lower total games on the slate, but you're not getting much ownership coming in here. Only 9% to Ingram, 7 apiece to Joval and McCollum. You've seen big playing time from Joval recently. I don't know how much of that has to do with Larry Nance being banged up. Joval's been playing really well also, so it's not like he's making it difficult for them to give him those minutes. You're always going to have some sort of concern going to Joval at a $7,500 price tag because they're going to eventually play him 18 minutes in a game and it's going to screw you. But with the playing time we've been getting recently, it's very difficult for me not to want to get to him in tournaments. He played, last game he played 34 minutes, lost a couple minutes to garbage time at the end. Not saying he's playing 36 minutes today, but knowing he has 34 minutes in his range of outcomes is very, very appealing. Whereas, earlier in the year, it was more so oh, I hope he plays 26 minutes today. I hope he gets into the closing lineup over Nance. We're seeing a lot more of these 30+ minute games out of him. So the upside he gives you is really nice. I've mentioned a couple of other high upside centers in the 6 to 7K range. It's just a really interesting price range to me when you have a bunch of ownership coming into Jokic. You have 50% combined ownership coming to Jokic and Sabonis. And then you also right now have Embiid pulling 15% with Harden projected in. It just creates, you're naturally going to get contrarian lineups if you go that route. Obviously you are taking on a lot of risk because you have 3 insanely good centers that you can pay up for here, but it is kind of an interesting contrarian approach where you can still get very good plays. They're just going to force you into a different roster construction. Ingram and McCollum both should play really big minutes. Ingram coming off basically the best game of his career. But all three of those guys are pretty appealing tournament options. There's not much else I really want in tournaments. Trey Murphy's been playing huge minutes. He is up to 6,400. He's questionable, like you said. If he's out, that does probably open more minutes for Josh Richardson, Najee Marshall. But assuming he's in, 4,200 for Richardson, 3,700 for Marshall, 3,800 for Nance, all getting basically no ownership. If you want to work them in the lineups and just kind of hope to run good on the rotations, that's fine. But the pretty clear top guys that I would want to get to here are Ingram, Joval, McCollum, and everything else seems very risky.
Yeah, I think, like you said, just finding a way to mix and match those guys might find a way to pay off. Keep an eye on that Trey Murphy news. He's been playing quite a bit of minutes. So those minutes, my guess is going to be kind of distributed across those wing players coming off the bench, specifically Marshall and Richardson. But we'll see how that develops if Murphy were to be out. Murphy's expensive at 6'4" and 5,900. I'm not really that excited to go to him, even if he were to play. It does change things up if he were to be out here. Before we move on to the Clippers game, I know MLB is right around the corner. We have an exciting promo. MLB is back. Go in the promo description and link in description. You get 50% off Platinum monthly with the promo code MLB is back. So I know MLB starts Thursday, right, Adam?
Sure.
Aren't you? I'm sure you're pumped for MLB.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I just don't know I think it's Thursday. I think it's the 30th.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like a 15-game opening day slate. It's going to be just another sport back in the picture. So definitely take advantage of that promotion while you can. On to the Clippers game we go here. And they're obviously without Paul George, and they got some promising news that Paul George has no ligament damage. So there's a good chance he might be able to return early in the playoffs. So we'll see when that's going to happen. Kawhi Leonard comes in at 10-1 and 10-3 over there on DraftKings and FanDuel, and he's going to look like an appealing option. Just going to soak up as much as usage as he can. Russell Westbrook, 8,200 and 7,900. Where things got really interesting last game, we saw Eric Gordon start. I think they did make an announcement that he's going to continue to start. He's priced up at 5,200 and 5,800. But then we saw the back end of the rotation, Bones Highland returned to this rotation. Played really well. My guess is he's going to be in the rotation the way things stand right now. But with this team without Paul George, Kawhi Leonard looks really appealing. He's just not going to get that much ownership when we've touched on it yet again. Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Sabonis are all on the slate. I think he's going to make for a very appealing low-owned option on this slate. How do you feel about specifically Kawhi?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, he's somebody, I was just sort of talking when we talked about the other side of this game about, if you took the approach where you're going with these mid-range centers and hoping to get, 45, 50-point game out of some combination of Valanciunas, Claxton, whoever, that would allow you, you're going to be forced into a different roster construction. And one of the benefits of that is it's going to open the door for you to pay up for Kawhi, who isn't as appealing as, say, Sabonis or Embiid or Jokic, but he's also not nearly as popular. And it's just going to allow you, you're still getting very good players in that build. You're just not getting the same very good players. So at the lack of ownership, I do think he's interesting. Very similar, I think, to Devin Booker, where, I agree that all of those centers should be more popular. If they were all getting the same ownership, I'm just jamming those centers in ahead of Kawhi, but they're not getting the same ownership. So it's certainly like Kawhi in tournaments, he's playing huge minutes. He gets a bump in production without Paul George. The upside for him is still massive. Yeah.
And now Russell Westbrook. I know we talked about him last time out with no Paul George. I think the upside for him is certainly on the table at 8,200 and 7,900, but is extremely volatile, big wide range of outcomes. He can certainly put up mid 40 fantasy points and put up anywhere in the mid-20s if he were to get benched here. Less likely, I think, Westbrook gets benched without Paul George, but how do we tackle Westbrook today in terms of DFS?
I think the salary is more or less where it should be, but I'm with you. It is less likely he gets benched with no Paul George. A few games ago when we had Kawhi out and George in, we got 37 minutes from Westbrook. Last game with George out, we only got 30 minutes, but that's a little bit deceiving because he did lose about 4.5 minutes of garbage time down the stretch. He played 18 minutes, give or take, in the first half. So, based on the first half rotations, you were looking at about 36 minutes. If you just based on how the game went, if you give him those garbage time minutes, you were still looking at about 34. I think expecting around 30 34 minutes from him on average is very reasonable. And there's going to be some games where he does play 36, 37. We know he's a good point per minute guy. His real life flaws don't really translate to DFS. So from a tournament standpoint, the upside is certainly appealing at 3 to 4% owned, but I don't think he's like a glaring value or anything either.
And go ahead and wrap up the rest of this Clippers team. Marcus Morris is sub 5K. Ivica Zubac is 5,900, going to be needed for the Valanciunas matchup. But him and Plumlee seem like more of a minute split. Any appealing Clippers players that you're looking to get above the field on?
Nothing that looks too appealing because these price tags have come up. If you get to a little bit of Zubac or Plumlee, I think that's fine. You're typically getting around 48 minutes from those two. And they're cheap enough where, if you get 30 minutes from Zubac, he's likely to pay off 5,900. Similarly, if Zubac were to get in foul trouble and you get 24, 25 minutes from Plumlee at 4,700, he's capable of having a big game as well. But they're both, pretty much correctly priced at a pretty loaded center position. Terrence Mann at 5,100 is tough to get to. He played 27 minutes last game, but who knows if he actually closes in a competitive game. He didn't close the first half. He only played about 10 minutes in the first half. Pretty risky to get to him. You had Bones Highland in the rotation last game, but he's already up to 4,600. He's another one where, he played 26 minutes, but he got garbage time run. He only played about 8 to 9 minutes in the first half. I expect you're getting 16 to 18 minutes from him on average. And then there's also the non-zero chance that they go back to Covington. That burned me last slate because in the game where Kawhi was out and George was in, I thought Highland was going to play. They went Covington. So then yesterday or last game, I thought Covington was going to play. They went Highland. I think there is some volatility there where we don't know exactly what they're going to do. They did win the last game easily, so I assume we're going to see a similar rotation. But we've just seen pricing adjust enough on this team that I'm not very interested in the secondary guys.
Yeah, it's going to be Kawhi, Russ, and it's going to be interesting. This Clippers team is just going to be tough to go to with those type of price tags on those guys you mentioned, especially Bones Highland jumping all the way to 4,600. Going to be another Saturday slate where I think there'll be a lot of news that will break throughout the day. Handful of teams on the back end of the back-to-back. I just want to say thanks so much for everyone who joined us this morning. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Shout out to Brett365 yet again, and don't miss out on that exciting offer. 365 bonus credits and bonus dollars. Just making a $1 deposit, it seems too good to be true. Adam, yet again, had a fun time doing this show with you. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you next time.